What up, what up, what up? Everybody, another edition of the Robin Lundberg Show here today. We're going to get to a bunch of topics today. Caitlyn Clark was invited to the Royal Rumble. You know, that's up my alley. The Knicks trade for Mikal Bridges, who played for the Nets. I root for the Nets. As you can see back there, my guy Ernesto will come on to discuss that in a minute. But I wanted to really quickly delve into a broader point I've been making on this show about the explosion of women's basketball. And that is the pipeline that we're seeing, the stories that we're following as a result of the growth of this game and the way that the sport is structured, right? Because men's college basketball does not have the same, it does not have the same linear path and easy to follow situation that we've seen now in women's college basketball, where back in the day, you would follow somebody's career and they would go through their career and you would see what they're doing and where they're going and where they're going to wind up and all those things. And you would have their story and you would understand, okay, this is this player that I saw at Duke and now I'm seeing in the pros. And that's almost completely gone from the men's side. Almost completely gone from the men's side, where there is no continuity like that. The international talent has changed that. Obviously, the rush to get into the NBA has changed that. And I don't say that to besmirch anybody. That it is what it is. That's the way of the world. Of course, they're going to want to go out there and get paid. Like, duh. No, nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. But it does change the way that people consume it and view the draft. Like, I mean, look at this real quick. Let me show you this. Tell me if you know who these people are for the WNBA draft. By the way, Van Shea Murdoch does a good job. You should follow him. But tell me if you know who any of these people in the top 10 of the mock draft are. Recognize them? Are any of those names more recognizable than Paige Bueckers, who is supposed to be the number one pick in the WNBA draft next year? I don't think it's close. I don't think any of those fellas there are even in the same stratosphere as Paige Bueckers as a star, nor Juju Watkins, but Juju obviously can't be drafted into the WNBA for a while. So that's the reason I'm using Paige for the example, because she's the presumed number one pick for next year. And, Paige shows up places and you see it. She was at the Commissioner's Cup last night and you see that online. It's not like, she can go places and not be seen in. Supporting the Lynx. She's from Minnesota. So you see Paige out there. The only names in this draft who I think are on the same level, one is Bronny James. And maybe Bronny James is more famous than Paige Bueckers, maybe. But it's for a whole different reason, right? It ain't because... And I actually think Bronny has a chance to play in the pros. I'm not one of those people who thinks he's only there because of his dad. Like, Bronny has good athletic ability. He can shoot. I think he could be a 3-and-D kind of guard, I guess, if you will. But, and nobody showed him any grace. The kid had a cardiac arrest last summer, and then everybody was all over him because of who his dad was. But if it wasn't for his dad, no one would know who he is, right? Like, no one would know who he is. He'd be some maybe going to be in the league player. So Bronny James is the one person you could argue is more famous than Paige Bueckers. The other, I guess, is Zach Edey from Purdue, but I think Paige is more famous than him. I think that, I just, was talking about the NCAA tournament. It's not like Purdue was drawing more than Connecticut and USC and and obviously Iowa in the tournament. So I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see. And it gave me an opportunity to make that point. And also title a show without it being Caitlyn Clark in the title. Yeah. It's gotta start branching out a little bit here. Obviously you'll still get your Caitlyn Clark coverage and the like, but gotta start branching out. And I thought that was a good way to make the point. And I think it's true, right? I think it's true. Let me get to some of the super chats because that was it. By the way, this is probably the last live stream of the week. So just a heads up, this will probably be the last live stream of the week. I'll have plenty of video content for you. Obviously, around tomorrow night's WNBA games, the Fever back in action. I think Angel Reese plays Asia Wilson. So content around that. Friday night, I'll be on with Denise Salcedo after SmackDown. So check that out if you're into the wrestling stuff. I'll be back next week with some lives, probably, maybe two shows next week because of the 4th and all that. And a coverage around the Phoenix Mercury game. Diana Taurasi just squaring off with Caitlyn Clark for the first time. Taurasi had some comments about that. You can check out what she said. It's in the description. There's a link to Women's Fastbreak on SI. I don't think it's that article specifically in the link, but I'll change it actually after this show so that the one I'm talking about is the one that you're linking to. Please check out that website. Give me any feedback you might have. I'm really trying to grow that right now as I grow this show. And of course, you guys help me grow this show. Let's go to DS with the super chat. Can Cooper Flagg change this? I think Cooper Flagg is the first college basketball star in a while. Since Zion, really. Zion is the last one. And obviously, Zion played at Duke as well. So, yes, I do think DS for next year, Cooper Flagg, future Brooklyn Net, could change that to a certain extent and could get – I think both college men's and basketball could have big years next year, in part because Cooper Flagg gives the men what they're missing, but he's only going to be there for one season. So that's part of the difference, right? Only there for one season. And then on the women's side, the fact that Paige is back in action, the fact that Juju is back in action, and so on and so forth, I think is just further proof that the Caitlyn Clark effect, whatever you want to call it, is not temporary, right? It is not a temporary thing. Let's go to AJ, my man. I want the Bulls to draft Bronny and then refuse to sign LeBron. The decision has long-term consequences. You forget the fan bases that were spurned during the decision, right? New York, Chicago, LA, in a sense, the Clippers, if you count them, right? I don't think LeBron is just signing wherever Bronny goes. I don't think that's actually happening. We'll see. Perhaps, can't put it past LeBron has the, gravitas to do what he wants, but that's the story of the draft, right? Bronny. The story of the NBA draft is LeBron James's kid. No disrespect to Bronny, who is his own person and hopefully has a successful career. But again, no one would know who Bronny is if his name was Bronny Stewart. Meanwhile, Paige Bueckers, people have been following her for a minute. Juju Watkins are going to follow her for a long time. Zach Edey's the only other recognizable name, and I think Paige is more famous than Zach Edey. I don't see Zach Edey, like, if he's somewhere, it blowing up. Paige shows up somewhere, and it gets shared. Kevin Zwicker, I want to be greedy. Bronny to the Knicks. How does that make you greedy? I don't even... Fine. If you want LeBron too, okay, that could make you greedy, I guess. Is that what you're getting at? That you want LeBron too? That could change things a little bit for you. All right, let's get to some of these other comments. Please consider sending a super chat if you want to get it read first. The Punker says, Bronny James, duh. And so does Vatamoni. Bronny James exists. Zach Edey exists. Again, Bronny might be more famous, but doesn't really, that comes with an asterisk. I'm not sure I'm counting that. in the same way. And on top of that, Zach Edey is not more famous than Paige Bueckers. I do not believe that to be the case. AJ says, when I first saw the show title for today, I couldn't have agreed more. It's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was an interesting angle, especially heading into the NBA draft. Johnny says Zhang Zhu is the most dominant women's basketball player today. I just did a video on her, dropped her an article on her, women's fast break on SI also. I don't know much about her except she's big. She's a big girl, especially for as young. She's only 17 years old, which is wild when you think about it. Bobby says her competition of 5'2". I mean, she is like 2 feet taller than who she's playing against. That's for sure. GH Sen says the WNBA should hold out for $1 billion in the new CBA. That $200 million, they should at least triple their media rights fees. At least, I would think. I mean, with the way that the league is growing, and the superstar obviously they have in it, and the superstars to come, as I'm talking about right now, they should at least triple it. Goodness rated Bo says yes to the thumbnail. Wody Mac says Toby Fournier, young woman who was dunking in high school, about 6'2", is going to Duke this year. Well, there you go. I mean, look, people are following the women from earlier ages now, right? Into the NBA and how they're doing and how they're performing and all those things. So that's another good sign for the continued growth of the sport and the league. What up, Bryce? How are you doing, man? Matt Monroe says Paige is the reason I started watching women's basketball again. She's the whole package. Yeah, I mean, look, Paige she's like a 3-level scorer, right? She's got a really nice game. Gotta like Paige Bueckers. Gotta like Paige Bueckers. She's a hooper. For sure. Michael S. says, how about the Knicks getting the last Villanova piece? We're going to get to that in just a minute. Uh-oh, Wody, I did not. She's a white girl, too? Oh, no. Bobby U says, Robin wants to cover other topics, but it's hard because the demand for Caitlyn Clark content is so strong. That is the Caitlyn Clark effect. Look, I've said this a million times. I'm always going to be honest with the audience. And as I was looking to find the direction for this YouTube show beyond my core audience, and I will never forget my core audience, and I will always be appreciative of my core audience. But when I was looking to grow it beyond my core audience, it wasn't until I started talking about Caitlyn Clark that happened. And then I also found it to be incredibly interesting because this is a unique moment in time. So I took a, professional journalistic approach to it, and I enjoy covering it, and I will continue to cover it. And Caitlyn Clark and the Indiana Fever are the North Star of where I'm going right now. But in order for the long-term success for both this channel and my Women's Fast Break on SI site, it can't just be them all the time. You have to sort of expand off of that. And that's, slowly but surely, you cover other topics. You expand off of that a bit, all within that same universe, right? Like it's like the rising tide lifting all boats. I mean, I wrote a piece for the site about the growth of the ratings. And if you look at the ratings growth, like the Caitlyn Clark ratings growth is absolutely like explosive. But the ratings growth for the rest of the WNBA is significant. They're up. Non-Caitlyn Clark games are nowhere near Caitlyn Clark games, right? Like nowhere near. But they're up 40% on games from last year, which any media company would be celebrating that, touting numbers like that, being up that much from the prior year. So that's I guess the best example I can provide is, yes, we understand that I understand no one else is touching Caitlyn Clark. And the interest in Caitlyn Clark is greater than for anybody else. At the same time, the interest on everybody else is expanding, in part due to Caitlyn Clark, right? In large part due to Caitlyn Clark, but nevertheless, that's the general philosophy, I guess I'm getting at right there. And, look, I'll try videos and put stuff out that I know will not get as many viewers, as much traction, because Caitlyn Clark's name is not in the title. That's the cheat code, to put Caitlyn Clark's name in the title. And I do it a lot. I don't think for any wrong reasons. But you can't only do that. Even though I'm going to continue doing that, if that all makes sense. Ghost of Jarella says Juju. Yeah, Juju's going to be a star. Shardy is a star too. Both Paige and Juju are stars right now. Goodness rated Bo. I think South Carolina got the dogs. Joyce Edwards has a complete game, all-around player. Johnny says the Knicks are winning the East. We'll get to the Knicks in a minute. But there's a response. The Knicks ain't winning a pub trivia night. Yeah, that's the by the way, a lot of people in here, so glad to see so many participants in the chat, so many regulars here in the chat. Top Gun says Bronny was the 5th best player on a mediocre college team. You really think he deserves to be drafted? Flyer on the side. I mean, I think he has some talent. I mean, like, again, he had a cardiac arrest. I throw his season out the window. Doesn't count, as far as I'm concerned. Fresh start. Yeah, you get a grace period when something that traumatic happens to you. And you never know how a certain situation works out. And, plenty of players haven't liked where they've been before and have changed their location. That's what the transfer portal has existed for. And then they wind up getting themselves to a better spot. So I'm willing to give him, do I think Bronny is going to be a star in the NBA? Absolutely not. Do I think there's a chance he's just not an NBA player? Absolutely. But there's enough there where I'm not willing to totally dismiss it, because he does have athleticism. He does have strength. He's a little undersized, so you have to handle the ball more probably at the NBA level in order to be on the floor. And he could shoot. So I think he could be a 3-and-D kind of guard at a ceiling. Bryce Smith says, Edey is suspect, especially how he played in the NCAA finals. I expected more from him. He'll have to get in the lab and work on a mid-range game at the very least. Look, those type of players can still dominate in college, but it generally doesn't work out at the next level, right? Like, who's the dude from Gonzaga that was at Gonzaga forever? That shows you how quick you forget, right? How am I forget? Is he even in the NBA? I don't think he is anymore. Damn, somebody will remind me. Kevin Zwicker says Paige is going to be real fun in the pros. Bobby says Paige is a better all-around player than Caitlyn, but Carlson is better. I don't know if Paige is a better all-around player. Like, Caitlyn is awesome in every aspect of the game. I don't know, maybe you could argue defensively, but no. Ghost again with it. You're right. The overall league average is averaging under $500,000 for non-Caitlyn Clark games. This is 1/3 of what the WNBA gets during the back viewership. But yeah, again, it was like 300,000 before. What the hell was that player on Gonzaga's name? Damn, he's like there every year in the tournament. No, it's not Adam Morrison. With the Adam Morrison had the mustache. The big guy, post player. Every year. That sucks to be as good as he was at the college level, and then I can't even remember his name. Uh-oh, the Angel fans are here. What up? What up? Timmy! That's what it was. You're Timmy. Thank you. Danny Adams says he was with the Wizards. Y'all, this isn't going to work from either side when you try to this. Paige Bueckers and Clark lived in the shadows of Angel Reese their entire careers and will continue to live in Angel Reese shadows. I mean, look, Caitlyn Clark was famous before anyone compared her to Angel Reese. She was a breakout star. And Caitlyn Clark is much more famous than Angel Reese. Much more famous now. Much more popular than Angel Reese now. It's not particularly close. With that said, Angel Reese is very popular and has a game that I respect a ton and a motor that I respect a ton. And when you look at, I think if you're saying who are the three most well-known women's basketball players in the world right now, it's Caitlyn Clark, Angel Reese, and A'ja Wilson, and then probably still Diana Taurasi, I would say next, with Sabrina being the fifth. Probably the top five, I would say, if I had to, just off the top of my head. But no matter what side you come from, I'm not going to, do the trying to prop over another. Andre says Angel is popular. She is popular. I agree. I agree with your statement. She's not nearly as popular as Caitlyn Clark. It is what it is. I mean, when we look at stadiums and ratings and any way to measure these things, Caitlyn Clark is Caitlyn Clark is the most popular player in basketball right now. It's LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Caitlyn Clark. Those are the three biggest basketball players in the world. Not to say that others don't have a following. And Angel is popular. Agreed. She's popular. As a great philosopher once said, there's levels to this. Eva Curricular Activity says Angel Reese is a good player, but not exciting to watch. Well, I don't know about that either. I mean, I find her, look, it's just a different style. Yes, I don't think it's as exciting as Caitlyn, but I like watching the way Angel Reese plays. I do. So I'm not going to say she's, not popular. Or not fun to watch, I'm sorry. We were just talking about popularity. We were just talking about popularity. That's why I mentioned that. Arike has a cult following. Arike can ball, but needs to raise her field goal percentage. I mean, she does take a lot of shots. She gets them things up. And I agree with Bryce. It's just a different style of game. She bangs on the that's how Angel plays. That's how Angel plays. And then Edward Penna, again, this is nonsense. To be popular, you have to cross the racial barrier. Angel has it. Caitlyn has it. Caitlyn Clark is popular with black people. That's just the truth. You maybe not like certain people who post on Instagram or Twitter, but in general, I promise you take a sampling of this chat, you take a sampling of a crowd, you take a sampling of the TV viewership. Caitlyn Clark is liked. Black people like watching Caitlyn Clark play basketball. Anything else is just a lie. And just like with white people, with Chinese people, with people from anywhere, Indian people, you cannot attach a label or a description that fits all. You can't. And this is an interesting comment from Wodu Mac. Black people know Angel and yet don't seek out her games in mass to see her play. Speaking of, I have one in my circle follows Angel, don't watch the game. I do think Angel has a lot of support on social media that doesn't necessarily translate to basketball viewership. Whereas Caitlyn Clark's popularity is, for the most part, basketball viewership. That's what we're talking about. The ratings for basketball games, the attendance for basketball games, not the likes on an Instagram post. As Kevin says, Clark is universal. And I do indeed think that is the case. Yeah, I mean, of course she's popular overseas as well, Doug. Of course. I mean, she's just popular. What time did Ernesto say he was going to get here, guys? To the members? Talk about the Knicks and the Nets trade. Quickly, I wanted to spend a few minutes on that. I think he said 7 o'clock. What a crazy trade. That, like, I was almost, when I saw that on my phone last night, I was like, it's one of those ones that's like, wait a second. Am I really seeing what I'm seeing? And I had to go check, Woj to make sure it was actually him and not a parody account and all those things, just because you don't expect the Knicks and the Nets to make a trade like that together, right? Like, just not what you expect. But at the same time, I thought it was a great trade for the Nets. I mean, they needed to pick a direction. And they picked one. Now they have a draft pick collection. How many picks do you really have in stock? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 5. Like the Nets have, I think they got the equivalent of 6 first-round picks from that trade. They've got 4 next year. Like, it's a good, I mean, it's a nice move for the Knicks from a roster construction standpoint. Bridges fits in anywhere. He's doesn't need the ball. Quick release on the 3, money on the mid-range pull-up. Good teammate, plays every game. He's a little inconsistent with the handles, and when finishing at the rim, that comes and goes. And defensively, I actually think he's slightly overrated. Having watched, just because he physically can get moved around a little bit, but he tries really hard out there. He knows how to read the passing lanes very well. Excellent play, like an all-star level player, right? But that was a superstar level return that they got. And the Nets now, the Knicks are now in a position where they're in this championship or bust mentality with that Villanova squad, which, by the way, was maybe the last great college basketball team, right? While we're talking about this Paige Bueckers situation. And the Knicks, like, having rooted for the Nets in the KD Kyrie era, I know how stressful it can be when, like, every loss feels like the end of the world. And the only acceptable outcome is a championship, right? But it's been a long time since the Knicks were competing for anything, so more power to them. That should be a good squad. I'd put them second in the East to Boston right now. Obviously, Boston was by far the best team in the NBA this year. And then the Nets are now in a position where they could really set their franchise up going forward for the next however many years if they make the right draft picks, because they have a plethora. They now have a stockpile of draft picks. And most of the best teams in the NBA have been built through the draft now, right? Like, they make other moves, but the last champions, the Celtics, Tatum and Brown, thanks to the Nets, built through the draft. The Nuggets, obviously, Jokic was famously drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. The Thunder, I mean, they got Shea in the trade, but the rest of those guys were picks. And he was essentially a pick and away at that time, at that phase in his career. Giannis was drafted by the Bucks. Edwards by the Wolves. Luka by the Mavs. I mean, up and down the league, very rare do you see one of these competing teams that's like been put together in the old superstar stacking model. So I think that's a good move for the Nets in that regard, changing the way that they'll be viewed. Bryce says Dante DiVincenzo started to ball out. Which Golden State had kept him? Yeah, he's a good player, good all around player. There's a word for it now, I guess. Right, 3-and-D plus, a 3-and-D player who can also do other things. I think that's where DiVincenzo falls. Johnny says Milwaukee and Philly are going to be better next season. Sure. I mean, I think the whole league, the injuries hurt the East this year. So yeah, I think you'll definitely see better performance from a lot of teams in the league. From a lot of them. Here's an interesting comment. Sinister Aristotle says, being associated with the Fever is nothing but toxicity and hate. Mitchell probably won't want to sign back, and Boston and Smith might ask for the trades. Others teams would gladly take them. I don't think that's the case at all. In fact, didn't Aaliyah Boston just post online and all of her teammates were underneath the comment section, complimenting her, including Caitlyn Clark? Pretty sure I saw that earlier today. As long as you avoid certain comments on your, posts and social media, I don't think you're going to have that issue, and I'm looking for it. I can't find it, but I definitely saw it earlier where Caitlyn and others had some supportive messages under an Aaliyah Boston post. And Caitlyn's been supportive of Kelsey Mitchell as well, passing questions during the press conference and all that stuff. I think, everybody's fine. Everybody is fine. Alvin White showing up saying Paige is definitely more famous than the whole NBA draft class outside of Bronny. Yeah. I mean, and Bronny, like I said, he doesn't count. Really, right? It's not apples to apples. At least in my opinion. Not quite the same thing to compare Bronny, given we know why Bronny is famous. And I don't mean that as a shot. It's just the truth, right? Sometimes you just say the truth. Say the truth. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. Share, comment, all those things. I giving you as much content as one man can possibly do. Make sure you check out Women's Fastbreak on SI. If you could go there daily, check it all out. I would appreciate that. I'm good, Ernesto. Where are you, man? You're supposed to come in. Click that link I sent you, and you can talk about your Knicks real fast. Mix the show up a little bit here. Ernesto's a longtime fan of mine. He used to listen to me on the radio back at ESPN New York. When he probably in every time slot he listened to me. But that, means a lot to me to see how many fans I've had that have stuck around. Let's see if Ernesto can use his technology appropriately. He should already be in here. I don't even know why he was writing in the chat instead of hopping right onto the show. Johnny says, I think Luka and Jokic might be more famous in Europe than in America. Well, yeah, I mean, it's harder for the international players to make the same imprint here. It's just harder. Andre says, hope Cameron Brink has a speedy recovery. Agreed. She seems to have a great attitude. It looks like she has had her ACL surgery. So hopefully she's on the mend. It's going to be, a minute before she's back on a basketball court. Where are you at, Ernesto? There's a Facebook group if you want to join the fan club on Facebook. But I'm trying to see because that's what I got tonight. Like I said, this is likely the live show, the last live show this week. If some news happens tomorrow, I'll do one. I'm not saying for sure, but barring something that's like worth talking about, I'll have post game coverage for you of the Fever game tomorrow. They got the Storm, right, and perhaps the Aces and the Sky as well. Then I'll be on with Denise Salcedo on Friday for SmackDown reaction. I'll have reaction to the Mercury and Fever game on Sunday afternoon, I believe. And check out Women's Fast Break on SI as well.
What's up, Robin?
How are you, man?
Good. How are you? Thanks for putting me on, man.
You got it. What is on your shirt there?
The company that I work for.
Oh, what kind of lock and security? You're a locksmith?
Yeah.
All right. So
I do locks. I do security. I put in safes. I do all that stuff.
tell me why the Knicks are a lock to win the championship.
Okay. We needed that piece, and that was the piece we needed. He's not an all-star per se. Well, he does have all-star numbers. Let's start there. He has all-star numbers, but he's not that all-star. He's not the Durant that's gonna empty the cupboard if you wanted to get him. I mean, as much as people were saying that all these draft picks that they gave up, they're draft picks. They don't even exist in terms of like they're not even gonna make it to the pros. They're not even gonna they're not even gonna pan out.
Hold on a second. As someone who roots for the Nets, and the Boston Celtics just won a championship based off Brooklyn Nets draft picks. You realize, right?
Yes, you're right. Actually, you're right. So let's just say if we win a championship first, and because of the result, you get a championship. Don't everybody wins? Everybody's winning there. Hey,
it's just a lot.
I just want to. I know. No, to be honest, what was that? Six picks in total? No,
Yeah,
how many picks in total?
It works out to be it's 5 picks and a swap, so it's essentially the equivalent of 6 picks, but 5 picks outright.
And to be honest, it was on a player that at least is proven. Let's put it like this: it's a proven player. They're not gonna. It's not like they don't know what they're getting. Supposedly, this is the Villanova, the Knicks. They're putting them together. So now it's the Villanova Knicks that's being assembled in New York now. So all they need is they need a championship now. I mean, they just need a champ. And now, to be honest, they have to sign Obi Anunoby.
They did.
They did.
Yes.
Oh, see, I took a nap. I took a nap out of work, so I didn't know. So when I woke up, I just saw that it was 7 o'clock and I had to get on. So I didn't know. Oh, so see now?
I think he's getting $44 million a year or something like that.
And he deserves every penny of it.
5 years, $12 million. No, he deserves it as a player. My only concern with him would be durability.
Well, that's again, it comes down to our coach. And what's up, Kevin? It's up to our coach to bring us to the promised land. And well, right now, what's his MO? Is that he kind of works into the ground, right? That pretty much that's his MO.
You're gonna see Mikal Bridges turn into dust. The fact that he plays every game already and then he's gonna play 45.
Yeah, I know it doesn't work. It doesn't work out well. That the coach is like, oh, so you want to play every game? You say, okay, all right. So it's. I want to see it now on the court. They've been together already. They're only adding a piece. They got already so far from last year. Only got one game away from the finals, from the Eastern Conference Finals. So, I think that was a good. I mean, for us, it was a good trade. The Nets. I mean, I don't know. Like you said, from this trade, you could see your future. I mean, 6 picks. I mean, you got to land somebody.
Let's have a clear direction now. And Sean Marks, remember when he took over after the trade from the Celtics, and he had no assets. And he built the Nets into a team that was desirable enough for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to sign to the Nets.
Yeah,
now he's got all these draft picks. Plus, Cam Thomas is going to score 40 points a game this year.
Oh, now he's their only scorer now. So yeah, Cam Thomas is going to be relied on heavily.
As a fan, it's really exciting to see a team grow that way. And there's also no pressure to be reeled out, because here's where I don't envy the Knicks fans. Like, I think where I don't envy, and this is coming from having rooted for that Nets team that probably should have won a title in 2021, had bad luck.
Yeah.
When things go wrong, it's like the world is collapsing, because the only now acceptable outcome for the Knicks is a championship. Like this year, it wasn't like that, right? It was like, Knicks, we're doing better than anybody could have thought. Now the only outcome that's acceptable is a championship.
But you saw these guys. I mean, come on. Every time they're winning a game, they're going out to 7th Avenue. They're closing it down. They're throwing a parade. I mean, come on, guys. It's just a game. They haven't even won anything yet in terms of, substance. Like in terms of winning playoff games, I'm tired of that. I don't want playoff games. I want a championship. I don't want playoff games. Championship, people. So I'm not going to be raising my flag every time they won one game in the playoffs. I'm tired of that. I think we should start growing up and stop doing all that stuff that they were doing every time they won a game or won a series and asking for Boston. Stop asking for Boston.
Well, you're going to have to want Boston now, man. If you're not asking for Boston, then what was the point of that trade?
No, not all that I'm talking, but yeah, you're right. That move that they made today was because of Boston. They did that because of Boston. I mean, they were hurt. They played injured. They took Indiana to 7 games, and they did this like with nobody on the bench. They were depleted. They were a mash unit. So I give them all the props for them to just keep the people who they have, sign role players. I don't want the star player. As much as this generation is all into stars, they want that big name. I don't want that big name. I want a role player. Know your role. Know where you're gonna go, where you can do. Pick up the slack. Go get that rebound. And he is a two-way player. He plays both sides. He's not just a offensive guy or defensive guy. He is a two-way player. I'm glad that they did that.
There you go. Know your role and shut your mouth. Ernesto, appreciate the time as always, my man. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
For being the fan that you are and for participating on the program here. As Michael S. says, I love that regular people get to be on this platform. I'm a regular person. There ain't no difference between me and y'all. Like, I've always said this. Like, no difference. I mean, this might be my particular set of skills, like Liam Neeson says. But I think, I've never looked at myself as different than the audience. Bobby Yu says, what makes Robin's live so enjoyable is because people are not here to spew hate, but to share their honest opinions. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. There's AJ shouting out Ernesto. Kevin shouting out Ernesto. Sinister Aristotle says, I'm not going to lie. The only things I'm interested with this draft is who are the Spurs going to draft to pair with Wemby and where Bronny will be drafted. Yeah, I mean, that's the difference. And hence the title of this show today. Because I think Paige is the only, or Bronny is the only person in this draft you could compare to, Paige's fame. Teddy C. Fielder says the difference between us is you try to rationalize for ESPN. We see their BS. I don't know what you're even talking about. I don't work for ESPN. So no, goodness, Rated Bo. I don't think Paige is better than Caitlyn. I think Caitlyn is better than Paige. I think, you could argue Paige is more well-rounded in a sense, like from like where she could score from, I guess. But I think Paige is or Caitlyn's so special at what she does well that, she's I think Caitlyn Clark is a generational talent. I think that's the reason, I've been able to build this show around her. Alvin says Bronny is a Laker. We all know that. We'll see. DS says, are you not salty at all with her? No, I'm excited for the Nets' future. That was a great move. Not the opposite of salty. Thrilled, happy, excited. The whole thing was over with already. Like, the whole championship window had been over and done with. So that's where I see this a little differently, I guess you could say. A little differently. All right, y'all. That'll do it for me, I think, tonight. Most likely the last live of the week, unless some news happens tomorrow that's worth discussing. If that happens, I will hop back on. But if not, this will probably be the last live of the week. On top of that, like I said, I'll cover the games tomorrow night, the Fever game, probably the Aces in the Sky as well. I will be on Denise Salcedo's show Friday, reacting to SmackDown. I'll give you guys coverage over the weekend, the Diana Taurasi and Caitlyn Clark first head-to-head meeting. Next week, I'll be back with at least a couple lives, and I will be hosting for Mad Dog on Sirius XM on Wednesday. I think that's all the plugs. Oh, yeah, and Women's Fast Break on SI below, please. Bryce, appreciate you. AJ, appreciate you. Appreciate everyone who joins this. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And until next time, yeet.